Hello everyone and welcome back to another lesson on perspective sketching. We're going to level up what we've done last time by adding another vanishing point in. The more vanishing points we add in, the more realistic the drawing looks. So if I flick on my 1 point perspective guides just now, and I want to draw a cube, so I'm going to draw this in here, take these lines back, put in a back line, and then come in and rub out some of these, just because this is an example. I'm not too fussed about neatness and working in different layers at the moment, but there we have a cube. And you can see in this type of drawing, the length of the thing, going back towards the vanishing point, is heavily exaggerated. If I leave this here and pop a new layer on, and in 2 point perspective, I will add in, I'll try and draw a cube again. Just taking these lines back towards the vanishing points. Try and make it the same on both sides, like that. Rub some of these lines out. And here we have something that looks a bit more like a cube. Certainly looks more like a cube than the other one does. And that's because, well, it's because one, I've drawn it in the middle of the page, and two, there are two vanishing points. So that means the depth lines need to go to the right and to the left side. So if we move out towards the vanishing point, which is just here, we'll need to adjust the depth of the cube to make it look a bit more like a cube, like that, because we are getting closer and closer round to the, I fucking lost myself there. Okay, so if we move towards the right hand side and we sketch this cube in once more, you can see it's getting pretty squashed the further back it goes. So we need to adjust for that and maybe have the depth along this side shorter than it is on the left hand side here. So this distance here from front to back is smaller than this distance, because we're almost looking right down this face. If we come and sketch again, sketch over my vanishing point this time, just pop my line in there and take the points back to the vanishing point, you can see that we can't see that face at all. So it's as if we're just looking at the one face, just the front face. So let me clear this layer. I'll jump in here and clear that layer away as well. Hopefully that's given you a bit more of an understanding about perspective. I have here the question. We have to sketch in 2 point perspective an electric toaster and a kettle, both sitting on the work surface, and I'm just going to focus on that just now. I'm not going to focus on what we need to add to our sketch to make it look more realistic. So, the kettle and the toaster's a rectangular shape. So just thinking about this just now, the toaster's going to look a wee bit like that. And I don't want to make it a 4-slice toaster, just a wee two will do. And it'll have a wee handle there and a wee bit sticking out there as well. And it'll have some feet on it, but I'm not too worried about that just now. That's what the toaster looks like. The kettle looks to be cylindrical, so we'll have some cylinders down here, going out to quite a wide cylinder, and then it's coming down to a smaller cylinder at the bottom, something like that, with a handle, a lid, and a wee spout, something like that. Now this is a technical drawing, so we need to construct this in a bit of a better way. So let me turn off the visibility of that question, turn on my 2 point perspective guides, and let's get drawing. Turn on my perspective guides. I can see they're a bit low down at the moment, so if I press the padlock, that unlocks them, and I'll move them up ever so slightly higher. Just about there. Now if I lock them in place again, I can't move them, and that's just put my eye line up ever so slightly. So now if I start on a new layer, I've got my pencil selected, it's a decent size, maybe put the opacity right up to 100% and start off just by drawing in the front edge of this toaster. There like that. Taking the toaster, the height lines right back. I haven't marked on any height lines, I've just guessed. But we have this toaster just about there, let's see. Looks roughly in proportion. Join these lines up to the opposite side. And there we have the box shape that is our toaster. Need to add some details in now. And I like to do all my measuring up the front line. So the top part of this, if I turn this off here, so the top part of this part, I'll do all my measuring here. So from the floor up to the bottom of this wee sticky out bit, and then to the top of that sticky out bit, and we'll add in the sizes, the bottom of the wee handle, the top of the handle as well. So just in here, I'm going to pop that on, there and there, and then I've got these two sections. Now all this detail's hidden around on this side, so I'm not going to add it in there. Instead, all I'm going to do is put my perspective guides back on and take these lines up towards the vanishing point. It's looking a wee bit confusing just now, so I'm going to turn my grid lines off, and there is no other detail given on this other than the top handles stick out more than the handles down at the bottom. If they're even handles, they might be wee vents, or it might be a control panel. So back into here, I'm going to stick on, use a wee bit of creativity here with my perspective guides, put them on, make the handle at the top a bit more narrow, bring these out slightly, bring these out slightly, and then I can start to add in the thickness of these things. So there's my first line, take that back to where it crosses over, down again, and take the next line back. And if you go over with your finger or Apple Pencil, whatever you're using, if you go over these a couple of times heavier, it makes the lines a bit more boldened. So the ones at the bottom don't stick out quite as far, so I'm just going to pop a wee thickness there, take it across, all the way down, and back down again. While I'm here, I'm going to add in some lines for the slots. So I'll just divide this line up there, 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 and there. And these slots are going to be very narrow looking, so take them across the top face, like that. Next thing to do is to take lines that would be your depth lines back that way. And that is just about the toaster pretty much done, I think. Let's go on to the layer above that we'll call our inking layer and set the pen size. I want this to be quite a thin technical pencil, maybe 1.5. And now I can zoom in again and start to go over some of the lines to create outlines. So here, now if I turn off my construction lines, you can see I've got the toaster, or I should have the toaster right there. I actually thought I'd outlined this because I went so heavy on the pencil. Whoops. If you find you've gone heavy on the pencil and it's difficult to see, the pressure on the layer, you can bring down the opacity, and that should help you to make more accurate lines in here. Why am I not drawing on this layer now? Right, that's fine. Now I've drawn that too far there. Now I want to show you a wee bit of rendering in here as well. So I'm going to sneak up on this line. There we go. And I'll make a smaller rubber. And I'll sneak up on some of these lines too. Anywhere else? Just right in here. Down at the bottom here too. And up this side. And we could probably do a tidying this up. There we are. Alright, there we have the toaster. Turn the construction layer off, and the toaster's looking pretty tall. Let's go on now and pop the kettle in. Now I'm going to pop the kettle roughly in somewhere that'll be in about this area here. Try not to block the view of the toaster, but certainly a wee bit far away. When I pop the wall in on a new layer, I'm going to pop it to be just about where the back of the toaster is. And the wee trick is, I don't have my toaster sitting flat against the wall. Mine is out a bit, but it's not that far out, and it's not sitting at an angle. So a wee trick is just to have it sitting out a bit further from the wall there. So that's my shit. That's my the back of my worktop. If I draw lines going across here, that's my worktop, and then I'll have lines coming up and down where my wall is. So a layer underneath that I'm going to create. Turn the visibility of that one off because it'll be quite confusing, and that one. Now, to do the circle in this one, if I pop a pencil back in, we will need to sketch out roughly where the square shape is, and then turn the ruler on. Now the ruler in this is fairly accurate, but the same thing that we've done, you can turn the page round too easy by accident. And we can construct this curve the same way that we've done in the isometric sketches and in the oblique sketches. So if I turn my ruler off for now, perspective guide's back on, and divide this up, try and get it accurate there. Try and get it a bit more accurate than that again. And the really good thing about working digitally is the glasses fall off your face, but also you have in this curve. So turn the guides off once more and zoom right in, because we need to divide this line in half, and then half again, and half again. And let's go ahead and sketch this circle in. I'm just going to half that and half it again, and it would help greatly if I sketched in the whole circle, because I know where my points are and where they're going. Now that doesn't exactly look like a circle, and neither it should. It shouldn't look like an ellipse either, because the difference between the distance at the front and at the back means it's going to be shorter, so it's going to be squashed down, but it's also sitting slightly off to the side. So what I would need to do is squash it in that direction, but also stretch it out slightly from there, and the more it comes out to the side, the more squashed in it gets. The closer to the middle, the more it stretches out. So that there is effectively my circle. If I draw another square at the top, try and keep the front edge in the same position. Let me turn my guides on again. Front edge in the same position, and this is going to be that tall. We can take these points back to the vanishing point, and if we take this edge up, and if we take this back corner up, then we're going to get another curve that we can create again. So let's take that point back to the vanishing point, and that one, and where they cross over at the back should be where the back face is. Now I'm going to turn these off once more and stick my ruler on and join up the corners again. Now because this is above the horizon line this time, we're going to notice a wee something different. It's not going to be as straightforward as just measuring up, and this is why it's important to be able to construct curves in perspective. So that's that there and there. And if I turn my guides off, it's going to look slightly more wonky this time. So there's half, half again, half and half again on the diagonals, and the half, half again. This way, when you sketch the curve in, it's like we're looking at it from underneath. And we won't see much more than that, but we can bring this all the way down, bring this side all the way down, and that gives us the cylinder shape. But of course it's wider at the top than it is at the bottom. If I flick this layer back on and come in, you can see it actually gets wider around about the middle section here, and then it's a straight up and down cylinder. So what we can do to make it a bit easier for us, instead of redrawing things out, let's just take our pencil and come in slightly there. Fall right off my face again. Just come in slightly and follow that curve around like that. And that way, if we choose a height line and take it back to the vanishing point, whenever we join up with that line, and then we get a cylinder from there up. Let's bring these down, these points down, so that we're joining it up with this line and with that line. Now looking at this, I've noticed a couple of things wrong here. The construction line that should form here to make the taper, I'll just flick this back on. You see there's a slight taper coming from this point down so that it gets narrower towards the base. And I've missed that here, I've taken it from the wrong position. Instead of taking it from the inside of the circle, of the smaller circle, but now I've taken it from the outside of the larger circle. So let's just change that, undo these lines, and come back in to rub this section out. And I'll do the same on this side too. That should hopefully clear things up a bit. Back into pencil, and I'm going to flick my ruler on for this too. And there we have a nice taper on here, so let's make a new layer above this one, and we'll have this one be the inking layer. Now, a hint for inking some curves: if you put on the predictive stroke, what this does is it takes your pen stroke and it tidies it up a bit. Do you see how that just snapped in to be a tight flowing curve there? Like that. So the higher that value is, the more it snaps in position. If I draw the same curve here, it doesn't snap in as much. So play about with this, see what suits you, and let's get going. I'm going to learn this in time lapse using the ruler, so I'll catch you on the other side. Okay, so here we have the basic shape of the jug. Missing a wee lid, but I think the way the perspective works here, you wouldn't quite see it. But we do need to add on the spout. It's this section here. To add on the spout and the handle. Now if we're drawing this the way that it is shown in the image here, then the spout should be coming off this face just about there, and the handle's on the opposite side of that, so it's around there. Now I don't think we need to worry too much about the handle and the spout shape. We're just going to do, we're just going to have a guess at where the spout shape goes. So let's turn this off. See, the spout shape comes down to just about where the angle changes. So we turn this off and make a new layer for the spout because it's going to be in the foreground a bit more, and draw in a line coming up here. That flicks into a straight line. Perfect. Perfect. And now if I draw a line that comes out just about to the middle and joins up with these two at the bottom. Just about something like that. That looks a bit dodgy, so to fix this, let's not bring that line to the middle. Instead, let's have a line that comes close to the edge here. Nope. Like so, and that looks a bit more realistic. Looks like the jug is actually facing us. And the handle would be in the back here, so we're not going to bother drawing the handle. Let's have a look at what else the question's asking us. So it says here, a tiled splash guard. Okay, let's add in tile texture then. That layer does no good being up high in our stack, so we'll drag it right down. And once we add in some colour to the toaster, we'll hopefully see that layer overlapping. So I'm going to switch on to the airbrush. I want this to be a nice rose gold colour toaster. So just in red, my red section, I'll maybe bring it around to about here. Make a nice rose gold colour. And then just go and apply a nice even coat all over. And this line is shown through here at the bottom. Not going to worry too much about that. But I will press on this and drop the opacity right down. And also turn off the visibility of that back layer so I can see what I'm doing a bit clearer. Out with the rubber. I'll just rub out right up to the lines here. I think an alternative what you could do here is to use your selection tool, magic wand select, and select different faces and areas that you can apply the colour to. Like that makes it a bit easier, less tidying up after. Selection there. Let's now use the airbrush again. And here we go. Now I want these selection there, and we can shade this in once more. I probably need to make this a bit darker on one side, so just a touch darker. Selection, and make this face a bit darker. Oh, that's the wrong way. And because we made that face darker, we can make the top face a bit lighter. So selection tool again, top face. Let's make it just that bit lighter, not quite the grey colour. If we need to, we can use the colour picker to pick out the mid colour. Because it's such a small area, it's barely noticeable. But we do need to do something about the inside of these. So I'll choose that, select an almost black. In fact, let's go into blue. And make it an almost black. Nope, not any good. Let's go for a darker grey. Yeah, something like that would do. Paint the inside of the toaster. Selection tool again. Select the inside of this rectangle. Just use your brush to brush that in. Now I want these bits on the outside here to be slightly lighter, a shade of grey, so selection, select this face, and brush that in, selection, select that face, and brush that in, selection, select this face, and brush it in. What you might find is if your selection is taking up all the page, you see the marching ants going along the selection here. If your selection is going on the whole page, then you'll need to go back in and look at where your corners are and join your corners up, or at least have them overlapping a bit, like here. Because if you have an open section, that's going to lead to some problems. You're going to put fill where you don't want fill. There we go. That's the toaster done. Now let's render this water jug. Selection, choose this selection here. That won't work because it's on the wrong layer, and you can see the marching ants going on the outside. The dotted line goes on the outside of the image. So we need to make sure we're working on the correct layer here. And have the selection tool on. And you see the dotted line jumps to the area I've just pressed. Airbrush on. There we go. Same thing for the bottom. Same thing for the bottom. Magic wand selection here. And I think this might not work. Yeah. This is an example of what I was talking about before. So what I do need to do is make sure I close up any of my lines. And I think there might be a slight gap here. I'll clear my selection. Make that pen black again. And do that on the right layer. Yeah, that's the right layer. Clear selection. Clear selection. Back onto the pen tool. Now we can join these up. In fact, there's my big open section right there. Let me just fill that in a bit more. I don't mind a bit of a flick. Let's see if that works this time. Selection, magic wand. Yeah, that's kept that area closed. So we can now come in here, use the colour picker, pick the right colour, and then we have a nice effect. Now for shading on the wee spout section, let's have that bit just a touch lighter. Subtlety is really the key here. Use my selection tool again, select this area, and I'll spray that in. Now because there's an open section, I've come away outside my lines, so instead I won't do that, and what I will do is bring the size of this brush down, because it's now time to add some highlights. So not a perfect white, add in a wee highlight there, make it a bit darker, use the colour picker to find the original colour. As we come further around the side here, we'll have the shadow core coming in like that. You also see a wee bit of shadow creeping up the side here, and then we can go and tidy that up with an outline. In fact, something we could do is the smudge. We can smudge that right out to blend it in some more. Now coming in with the rubber, and we can tidy up all these outside parts. Now the smudge tool is just here. It's the wee cone shaped rubber, this one. And that has made the effect look a bit more 3D. Let me clear the selection. And move this layer below my ink layer for that. Oops. Oh, I've coloured in right on my inking layer, haven't I? That's made it look a bit wonky. Oh dear, but never fear. If we turn on the backsplash now, you see there's no shadows. I'm not too fussed about shadows just now. But you can see that this background image is following perspective roughly. We can change that out slightly. If we go onto the right layer, we can change its perspective ever so slightly. To make these points go further back. That's looking a bit more like it. We could do the same thing with a wood texture. I already have a wood texture that I'll find here. Just scale it up. That's as big as it goes. We can use the handles to make it look a bit more like a worktop. However, I'm not going to do that. Instead, what I'm going to do is just near the bottom, I'm just going to spray in a worktop colour. Make it a nice medium dark brown. Pump the brush up. You see, that looks just smashing. One other thing is, if I take my pencil on top of these two layers, so on top of the worktop and the backsplash, I can draw in roughly where a shadow lives. Zoom in to do that. very light pencil lines happening here because I'm drawing in the same colour. So if I make that black, draw pencil lines back in. There's lights coming down here. We're going to be hitting the shadow section. I'm going to bring up the wall all the way along. We can pop in the same sort of shadow effect here of this jug, and that's really the only shadow that you'll see. Make up the wall a bit more. So what we can do once we have the shadow in place, probably drop the size of that brush, the airbrush, and also turn the opacity down a lot, so maybe make it about 10%. This way you can sketch in where the shadow lives, and if you need to, you can go over it once or twice more, like that. And that adds another level of realism. Let's see what else we've added in. Okay, so we're also asked for the front edge of the work surface, okay, and a single drawer situated below the top of the work surface. Now I think I'll have a difficult time fitting that in because my drawing's so large. So for the sake of this, I think we'll maybe call this one just about done.